Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the new federal state of China's program, Miles Trial. We will be here every day from 3 p.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to share the latest updates on Miles cases, especially with the trial is going on since last Wednesday. And some of our family's members and supporters might have already known about Miles' case. He was charged by the United States government with 12 federal counts. Most of the counts were financially or investment related, and Miles has never pleaded guilty to those counts, and his trial started since last Wednesday. And this is actually the day 5 of his trial, and the government already started to call different witnesses. Cross-examination also resumes today as well. So we are here today to share the latest updates about today's trial, and we're very happy to introduce Feather from the Southern District of New York, who just came out of the courtroom.
Everyone from the LFA TV and everyone who's watching our live stream right now. And hi, Ella. Thank you so much for having me. As you can see right now, I am outside of New York South District courtroom, um, and I am just got out the courtroom after the trial today. So it was a pretty long day, and we finished they finished questioning the third witness, and now we began to questioning the fourth witness.
Right, Feather. Thank you so much for joining us today. Well, tell us a little bit about what happened in the morning, right? Obviously, yesterday was a lengthy questioning about the third witness, and for our new viewers, the third witness actually claimed that he was a former participant of the political movement, the whistleblower movement, and he was also a
Mhm.
former volunteer within our organizations, and he did claim that he invested in different related to VOG and G clubs. He also demonstrated some physical pieces of G Fashion clothes products, jewelry products, and other G Fashion purchases proof to the court and to the jurors as well. So tell us a little bit of how Mr. Guo's defense team finished the cross examination for this witness, particularly this morning.
Yes, so as many of you know that yesterday the prosecutors, the government, took most of the day questioning the third witness, which is a former fellow Federals of ours, and we only started to do the cross examination like late afternoon. It's like I would say only an hour and a half left of the day, and this morning we resumed our cross examination for a third witness. Yeah, we start off about talking about G fashion, and a lot of G fashion, the four G fashion items was brought up to the court again, and he was questioned whether if there were the only four products he bought from G Fashion, and he claims no, he bought over 30 G Fashion items from the website, and these four specific items are selected and by him, and as well as the help with government. For example, the government suggests, oh, bring each item in different category. For example, pants, clothings, hats, jewelry such as the whistle necklace. And we talked about the farm lawn as well. Because it was a really long day. I don't have my notes right now, but what I can remember by how they concluded with the farm lawn is that I remember specifically they were talking about how the farm lawn it's a 3-year contract, and so um, since last year, since the farm loan was program was purchased or what was invested, there's still until next year till the farm loan program is terminated. But he claims that he believed that if the UK farm leader is resolved, it's removed by the Himalaya Alliance, that the contract does not exist. And then it's very interesting because that's what he believes, that how the contracts and legal document works. So our lawyer Sid asked him. It's very it's a very funny conclusion. He mentioned, oh, is this your legal conclusion then? He's like, he's like, I believe he said yes, or he said I didn't know. But and then Sid asked him, where did you learn? Where did you go to for law school? Apparently, this question was sustained because it was not allowed to ask. And yeah, so it left I believe it left a huge impression on the juror that this witness had not a lot of legal training or knowledge about this legal documents, and how and when he can get his refund. He doesn't have a really clear understanding of how the contract worked, and that he will get the refund as soon as the contract is terminated at time. So it's still
Right.
within the
So
limit. Yeah.
Right. So what you were saying was, several documents were presented in the court today. As we mentioned yesterday, there are different types of evidences or exhibits, that were being brought to the courtroom to the jurors, right? And the jurors was able to actually examine all of the G Fashion items, one by one through hats, silk doni pants, right? T-shirt, black T-shirts, and a 24K gold jewelry whistle necklace, right? And so,
Yes.
yesterday in our live chat room, there were families and our viewers asking how was, clothing pieces or how was jewelry pieces got involved in this case. So I would just, simply answer. It was, one of the witnesses called upon by the government trolls to reveal his purchase history with one of the entities that were mentioned in the indictment of Miles. And so, the fashion company was called as G Fashion. And so the third witness, claimed that he bought various pieces of G Fashion products, that he does not believe in the overall quality of the products that he purchased, despite he had made different times of purchases and over maybe tens of thousands of purchase and amount all of the items. But he stated to the jurors that he personally did not believe in that the quality actually was matching with the price, and he brought in the actual items, fashion items, to the public. And so Feder, obviously the third witness has, was, majorly, occupying yesterday and this morning half of the day as well. And the government, I was noticing that just from all of the NFSC Speaks report that the third witness also talks about that he was volunteering or he was helping or get to know that there were protests related to, protests against the CCP. Yes. He mentioned about his volunteering experience as a broadcast technician, and some of his broadcasts were actually related to, contents that was related to, NFSC's protest against Chinese Communist Party. How would that, being mentioned in the court today?
Well, we confirmed the volunteer works he did. For example, doing live streams, transcripts, and making posters and follow, streaming. I believe he claims to that he have streamed over like thousands of live streams or videos online during the time of protest. And this first day of questioning the third witness, he mentioned how he thinks that the protests and a lot of contents were mean, or for example, like the banner saying CCP running dog. Mm-hmm. But that only have been brought up or once in the protest about one specific individual. And none of this was appointed by Miles Guo. And he was, I believe he was talking about the Capitol Hill, that none of these banners was appeared during that protest. Right. And all these are confirmed after the cross-examination.
Right. So apparently all of the topics that, the government calls upon the witness yesterday was brought up again by our defense with, more careful questions, right? And so, it is my understanding that today the government also called upon the next witness, which was, reported to be a former employee of some of the entities that were mentioned in the indictment. So brief, us a little bit about, how the fourth witness was called upon to the court. Was it before lunch break or was it afterwards?
It was a little bit before the lunch break. So, the introduction, first we start off with the individual questions, like where you live, what's your name, and what's your experience with the defendant. And it was a little bit before the lunch break. And we learned about this female witness was a former employee of a Miles School. Um, Starting in 2018 to 2020, around 2 years and a half of employment time with working for Miles School. Um, and then the government team delved into more specific details about how was the job interview like, how did she brought up to the interview, how was the interview, and how was the environment that Miles was in, like very specific, and also a lot of works that she was involved in, for example in Rule of Law Foundation, in Guo Media, um, and as well as lifestyle. A lot of questions on lifestyle, that like housing, security guards, and we have shown a lot of photos as well of Miles's family, and a photo of her and Miles, and as well as Miles and his wife, and a lot of times that Yvette Wang was mentioned in the direct examination.
Right. So, well, when government called upon the fourth witness, did they specifically ask about her involvement in T Enterprises? And, did the witness express any, strong attitudes about her past experience with Miles?
I would say overall today, we know that she might be experiencing some unwellness physically. Her volume was pretty low, and a lot of times a lot of people couldn't hear clearly. I wouldn't say she expressed a lot of negative attitude towards her past experience. In fact, she made eye contact with Miles before, when she walked out of the courtroom for lunch break, and they smiled at each other. And she explained further later in the question that everything she's done was also part of her job, but there's some belief that she made that work she's done for Miles that she thinks wasn't right at the time.
Right. So, obviously, she chose to testify with the government, and there was, there must be reasons behind. And, we forgot to ask one very important question, at the beginning of your interview, right? How was Miles today? Obviously, he's day 5, and it's the second day after the Memorial Day holiday. And it was very intense. The court documents has been updating, and he and his defense team has fought very hard every single day. And the questioning with each witness, is lengthy for a defendant and for his team as well. So how was Miles today? How does he look like? Was he smiling at any of the supporters who went to the courtroom today? Was he chit-chatting with marshals or his defense team again?
Miles looks still very amazing, like usual, like any other day in court that I have seen. He was wearing a dark navy suit with a black tie with a white shirt, and he was smiling and nodding at us and making eye contacts, and he's even looking at the witness and the jurors, and his gaze is sharp but very friendly and smiley. We feel the friendliness within his looks, and as well as communicating with Sid, with his lawyers, and he has demonstrated, I believe, very good oral communication skills to us, and we were very surprised. Yeah, Miles is doing amazing.
Right, right. And adding upon on, what Feather has brought us today, we want to make minor corrections on the fourth witness. The fourth witness is a female witness, first of all. She is a former employee of some of the entities that were mentioned in the indictment. However, she herself is not a private employee of Miles. So that is, a distinction, in her past employment history. And obviously, Feather, I don't think they were able to actually complete cross-examination for the fourth witness today. Am I correct?
Yes, unfortunately, we did not finish the cross-examination. There's still a lot of questions to be asked by our lawyer, Sabrina. I also have to mention something about the energy today. So when we start questioning the fourth witness, the prosecutor, the government team was, doing the usual questioning, and then question and answer it was very long and was slow. Like I would say the tone was pretty much neutral, and like I would say maybe they've been rehearsed, or maybe that's something keeping up the pace. So there's less things to be there's less catch in the response, and then for the jurors to caught upon. But when Sabrina started the cross-examination, of course, all our fellow fighters are really hyped up, and we're really excited for that moment. Sabrina brought up the energy I've ever seen before. Well, I've only seen her once during the other cross-examination, but today her energy was on the rooftop, and we're really impressed about questions and her logics, and a lot of things she asked have really gone back each one of the arguments that government have made with the witness.
Right, and for our new viewers, Sabrina is one of the leading attorneys in Miles' defense team, and so she gave a very powerful opening statement last week, right? When government was trying to give a mini indictment to the jurors, to the public, she actually expressed about her understanding of Miles' family's histories, of Miles' prosecution histories, and by the Chinese Communist Party, and how CCP was actually still chasing after Miles, even since Miles fled from communist China. So it was a very powerful statement. I'm sure that that powerful opening statement still left a very heavy impression among the jurors, and so it was very happy to hear that the defense team is keeping the energy up, and asking questions with great logics out there. So Feder, give us a little bit of ideas about what specific arguments were the government trying to make through witness 3 and through witness 4, and how these witnesses were being brought to the court or being presented to the juror today.
Of course, there's a couple. Well, there were a lot of arguments, but there were a couple that really caught my attention. It was throughout a long questioning, and there's one that started with, I think, it's the security team. So a lot of people. Well, first of all, the government started questioning. So after the long introduction of who this witness is and her working experience, and the closeness with between her and Miles in the past, maybe give people an impression that she knows a lot of things that other witnesses might not be able to bring on a table. But she made this argument where she doesn't believe that Miles needed security, and there's no existent danger to her knowledge. And so our defense lawyer specifically mentioned how he chose to have security because there is existed danger. For example, in the Sherry Netherlands hotel, when this witness was brought to interview, her name was on the building security list, so she's allowed to be let in the hotel, into the house. And this security, this protection, it's made by Miles and also for Miles's family.
Right. So
yeah.
Yeah, so obviously, the government was trying to lay foundations for every witness, that they called upon, right? And somehow that, we've seen a variation of the witnesses. Obviously, the first two witnesses have very limited knowledge about the entire matters that were brought up in the indictment. And the third witness sounds to me was more portrayed to the court as a victim of the investments. That many of the arguments that he was the third witness was trying to say were that he did not actually believe in the investments or in the purchases that he made. And now the fourth witness was was how the government was trying to give another perspectives by calling upon on former employees. So just the variety of the witnesses here. Do you think that that more questioning or more witnesses will be called upon, in the upcoming days and weeks?
Yes, of course. I definitely believe that there will be more witness that the government believes knows a lot about the witness or can prove all those arguments in the indictment, allegations in indictment that government made. So we look forward to see more witness in this week, and because it's all just the beginning of this week. And we still have to see at the end of tomorrow's questioning for the witness 4. As I was mentioned before, that really the government team is trying to paint us a picture without a lot of details, and there's only very one-sided and in the storytelling. And our defense team lawyer was trying to fill out the blanks, that the other side of the story that the jurors and people should know about this whole thing.
Yeah, exactly, right. And that's why the cross-examination exists in the courtroom, and that's why the government always bears the burden to prove their allegations first. Up till now, to my understanding, Miles has not stated anything in the courtroom, himself, right? Because it was the government's time and not the defense time, to speak for the defense. Am I correct?
Yes, absolutely.
Right. And so, Feder, thank you so much, for briefing us on the latest report of what was happening in the courtroom today. Obviously, I knew that, you have been into the courtroom since day one, and it was very intense for you, since last week and until today. So thank you so much for bringing these news to us.
Thank you, Ella. I wish to give more updates in the future.
Absolutely. Thank you, Feder. So folks, we're very happy because one of our supporters, Kevin, who also just came out of the courtroom, and he was ready to actually present more details of what was going on today. Thank you so much for coming to the studio, and brief us a little bit of what's going on in the morning. Obviously, they've completed, the third witness cross-examination. Are there any highlights in terms of questions and responses for the third witness?
Yeah, so I'm not sure how much Feder talked about on the show before I got here, but basically, yeah, like you mentioned, they finished cross-examining the third witness, and it was really just Sid, which is Miles's lawyer, who was cross-examining the witness today, basically trying to hint the jury at how the witness should have read the agreements more carefully, I would say, because at the end of the day, he is a real estate agent, and he does advise clients on transactions, right? And even though one of the questions that Sid asked was overruled by the judge, I still believe that seed of doubt was planted in the jury. And then
what specific question do you still remember?
Yes, so it was about how if he advises his clients on transactions. So it's really trying to hint to the jury about how it's similar to how the connection between the businesses and Miles are. And then he also, I believe, also tried to mention that the VOG was investment was separate from the other investments, and so there was actually a sidebar between the judges, the defense, and the prosecution. And I guess in the end, the judge didn't allow the question, but once again, I believe the seed of doubt was planted. And then after that, the third witness cross-examination ended, and then they brought on the fourth witness. But I guess, before I talk about that, I guess the most important thing that everyone wants to hear is how Miles was today. I'm not sure if Fed already touched on that, but he entered the courtroom the same as yesterday, smiling. He waved to fellow fighters. There are a lot more fellow fighters in the courtroom today. He was wearing a dark blue double-breasted navy suit and a white shirt and black tie. And as usual, he was very, he was very cheerful, very high-spirited and energetic. And then, I guess I'll talk a bit about the fourth witness.
Yeah, right. Before Kevin introduced the fourth witness, right, a subtle detail is that if people actually read all of what Miles wear every single day, he never wear the same suits or same ties every day, right? And it was his etiquette, it was his clothing etiquette, and it was his habit that he understands that all of the clothing of how you look is your feng shui in Chinese, is about how you look. And so he changed his suits and shirts and ties every day, and that's how he faced the challenges in the courtroom. That's how he faces all of the difficulties and challenges in his life. And so Kevin, right? And obviously, when you mention about that there are some doubts about how the third witness understands about legal documents, about the transactions that he made in the past, and about the arguments that the government was trying to establish through the third witnesses. So brief us a little bit on that the new witness today. Obviously we learned from Feather that the fourth witness was a former employee of some of the entities that were mentioned in the indictment. And so what were those main arguments from the fourth witness today?
Actually, before I talk about it, could I talk about the third witness?
Yeah, absolutely.
During the cross-examination, there was a stipulation. So from what I remember, stipulation is an agreed upon statement between the defense, both parties, and I assume it's not evidence, but it's just to let the jurors know, give more background context. And so it was about how there's a document. There's about, I think, 7 points. It was talking about how Miles is the main target of Operation Fox Hunt. So it was diving a bit more into the background of how Miles is the #1 enemy of the CCP. And so it mentioned stuff about how a law enforcement agency said that the CCP was paying for and giving food and supplies to protesters of Miles, as well as how the CCP pressured U.S. social media platforms to remove Miles's and his associates' accounts and deleting their posts and basically just censoring them, and also how they keep trying to repatriate Miles. Like, for example, they talked about how in May 2017, there were 5 Ministry of Security agents, State of Security agents, trying to repatriate him. And then they talk about the George Higginbotham, Elliot Boydie, and Leahy Lum Davis, lobbying on behalf of foreign agents to repatriate Miles back to China. So I think that's something that's very important. Gives because I think at this point the jury is thinking about how the defense is trying to prove that Miles is the #1 enemy of the CCP, and this is proof, right? This is what was really useful to the juror to determine that. And as a lot of the case facts hinge on this exact fact, right? So that was something exciting to see, and it was it's probably very surprising for the jurors as well if they've never heard of it.
Right.
Yeah, as Sabrina said in the opening statement, there'll be eye-opening and surprising facts, and I believe that was one of them.
Right, and how was that stipulation mentioned, with the third witness? How did both parties, and obviously, we understand what stipulation is, and so all of what you were saying, was it public stated to the jurors, or was it a sidebar conversation?
So it was actually just, the defense, at his stand, just noting that, Judge, I have a stipulation, and then just saying the stipulation. Yeah.
And did the jurors give out any body language interaction? When our defense gave the stipulation.
Yeah. So I mean, all the evidence is presented on the screens. The jurors have screens in front of them, and so the document of the stipulation was also presented, and I believe all of them were reading it closely, as well as listening.
Right. So, obviously it's another powerful statement that our defense gave, right, since last week. And the first opening statements that our defense gave absolutely give people of some of the backgrounds of Miles' families about his experience of fighting against the Chinese Communist Party, but absolutely, learning more about Fox Hunt operations, learning about how secret agents was trying to repatriate, Miles from United States back to China is definitely eye-opening for everybody. And so, what happened after the stipulation? Did government, pose any objections, or did the judge conclude the questioning for the third witness?
So, I mean, since it was a stipulation, and as mentioned earlier, it was agreed upon by both parties.
Mhm.
So right after the stipulation, the defense just moved on to another question.
Mm.
So just to let give more context on the previous questions and for future questions.
Right.
Yeah.
And what was the previous questions before the stipulation?
Yeah. So I mean, the previous questions were just talking a lot about some of the testimony that the witness gave during the prosecution questioning. For example, asking about bank accounts, asking about his investments in GTV, G Clubs membership, stuff like that, as well as his Himalaya coin quota agreement.
Right. We're now pulling up some of our live chat room. I'm just gonna read it out loud. That one of the viewers said that I'm very surprised that Miles hasn't been assassinated. I support him and his followers. Keep up the great work. Thank you so much. And another viewer said, I noticed you angry. The older class, as in America, has been so conditioned to think a certain way. The younger people have broke that and embraced critical thinking ideas and truth seeking, right? And then this was primarily why we're doing Miles' trial every day, right? And so Kevin, let's move on to the fourth witness today. First of all, did the judge or did the government introduce about the next witness yesterday? When the court was concluded, were you aware yesterday about another new witness will be brought in today?
No, not. She just mentioned that the judge just basically mentioned that will the prosecution bring their next witness? So I mean, I'm assuming that until the judge says that was the last witness or whatever, then they'll keep
calling upon more witnesses.
Yeah.
Yeah. And brief us a little bit on her, her background and how, she presented himself to the court today.
Yeah. So the fourth witness, her name's Karen Mastrello. So she's actually used to work for Miles.
She worked for some of the entities in Miles' indictment.
Yeah. And she lives in New Jersey, and she worked for those entities from 2018 to 2020. And so, her main role was on the legal documents was, I believe, project assistant and interpreter. Yeah. So basically, I guess if you want to say translator, she said she knew, she spoke English, French, Mandarin, Spanish, Italian, German, just a few. So lots of languages. And they also talked more about her role, like what she did, right? She also was, I believe, on the board of the Rule of Law Society as president and treasurer. And then the prosecution also asked about her experiences in China. She used to work there for 5 years before moving to the U.S. in 2017. And they talked about her interactions with Yvette Wong, as well as her work at Golden Spring, New York, where she was employed. And then they also did show a lot of evidence as well, such as pictures of Miles, Yvette, Miles's daughter and wife as well, and Miles's daughter's boyfriend. And so there were a bunch of prosecution questions related to this, and then afterwards there was the cross-examination by Sabrina, and then basically Sabrina, as usual, just cross-examined and asked questions based on the previous testimony by the prosecution.
Right, and so what are the specific, questions that our defense brought in today? Obviously, this is the first. I would say the first, quote unquote, former employee of some of the entities appear on the court and to testify and to state about their experience of working for some of the entities in the indictment. So, what were the defense questions to her today?
So, I mean, first, I believe that, during the prosecution questioning, the witness testified that she didn't really agree with some of where the funds were spent. And so when the defense started cross-examining her, they made it clear that, there's also a Golden Spring Hong Kong, and there's a Golden Spring New York and a Golden Spring Hong Kong, right? They're two separate entities.
Right.
And so the defense was asking if she knew anything about Golden Spring Hong Kong and, where the money came from, or how the money even went into the Golden Spring New York's bank accounts. And then, the witness had absolutely zero ideas. And so, after a bit of questions back and forth, they moved on from that. And then after that, the witness was asked about Pangu and whether, she knew that Miles' family actually owned Pangu. And she responded how she knew Miles was a developer, but that she didn't know that he was the owner.
The actual owner.
Yeah, and then also talked a bit about Miles's Beijing home. And after that, they moved on to the employment contract between her and Golden Spring, New York. So in her prosecution questioning, she sort of hinted at how not that she was mistreated, but that she was just satisfied with some of the things that she experienced. And so Sabrina, Miles's defense lawyer, she brought up the employment contract between her and Golden Spring, New York, and she went down to a clause in the contract that said it was an at-will contract.
Correct.
So basically,
both parties
could terminate the
the employment at any time.
Right? And so even though she was dissatisfied, she still stayed out of her own free will. And I'm sure the jury saw that it was out of her own free will and choice. And then Sabrina moved on to talk about how many times the prosecution lawyers met with the witness, many times. And however, she was not able to recall the exact dates that she met with the prosecution lawyers. Sabrina asked literally like, I'm assuming she has a list of all the dates, right?
Right.
And she asked like, August 2023, that's the first time the witness was contacted. Then moved on to like November, and then went to May. She mentioned a couple of dates in May. The witness just said, I do not recall. And she only recalled, a few dates, literally like Monday and yesterday. And then after that, they moved on to an evidence. There was a picture of the witness with her arms around Miles like this, and Miles imagine his head is here. And so in the beginning, the prosecution tried to frame it as they had a really intimate relationship, or really close relationship between an employee and employer. But the Sabrina actually made it clear that it was actually a photo shoot. So there were many people in the office at the time.
Everybody did the photo shoot together. It was just happening to be one of them, right?
Yeah. So I think I heard Feather mentioning it earlier, but yeah. So the government is trying to paint a picture while Sabrina's and the defense team is trying to clear that picture up, right? And then after that, I think this was pretty important as well. Sabrina asked or clarified with the witness that she left because of medical reasons. So she left not because she was fired, or because she left because she was dissatisfied. She left because physically she was unable to. So I think that was something pretty important to be cleared up. And then after that, Sabrina also asked about working relationships between the other employees, as well as such as William J., which is the lawyers called the finance guy, and also talked about the Sherry Netherland hotels. And also, asked more about how, gifts to her. So Sabrina mentioned that Miles actually, gave gifts such as a Hermes, puffer jacket, stuff like that, to show, sort of how, she was treated well while working at Golden Spring, New York, compared to what, the prosecution is trying to paint. And then, other than that, it ended with, talking about how. This is actually very important about the trip to France. So I believe after the
it was around 2018, right?
Around 2018.
It was about the first year that she started work, for those entities.
So there was there was in France, there was a CEO that was murdered, or that Miles predicted was murdered by the CCP, and Miles actually sent the witness and 4 security guards who were ex-NYPD to the site in France to investigate. And then so basically that was funded by the the Rule of Law Foundation, and so they were talking a bit more about that. And then they brought up Bannon, about how they were asking questions about how if she knew he was vocally anti-CCP. And then finally they ended with Bannon's role in the Rule of Law Foundation Society, and how its aim and objectives are to help dissidents and people who escaped CCP China to through such things such as asylum applications, navigating the new language, and etc., just stuff like that.
Right. And so there were two important events that you mentioned today. One is about the stipulation, right? Obviously, it was a very strong signal to the jurors about Miles's position, when he fights against the Chinese Communist Party, this is the treatment that the CCP has done to him, and this is the CCP's overseas campaign, against any of the dissidents, and Miles was happened to be the number one enemy out of it. And the second important fact today is that the witness did testify about her trip to France. And that trip to France was very important to the history of the whistleblowers movement. As you mentioned, right, Miles predicted in the broadcast that one of the CEOs of Hainan Airlines, Wang Jian, actually, was murdered by the Chinese Communist Party. And it was even beyond the trip, because at that time Miles did broadcast with the journalist and the witness herself. When she was at France, there were photos, there were videos related to that investigation that went public. And later in the year of 2018, Miles also held a press conference of giving out the public about the evidences and the results of the investigation that they have conducted. That includes video clips of the hotels, on-site photos, interviews that was conducted secretly, and interviews related to the hotel managers, to the security guards and the managers. So there were lots of details that were actually released in 2018 about the investigation. So I think it was very important that when the witness mentioned about the things that was actually happening in the past, and that every party, like judge or prosecution team or the defense team, can find those clues in the past videos of Miles. And so when the judge conclude today's trial, today's questioning today, obviously I think the cross-examination will resume tomorrow morning with the exact fourth witness. Am I right?
Yes. Right at 9:30.
Right at 9:30. Okay. And so were there lots of objections from the government when our defense team were trying to question the witness?
Yeah, I believe so. There were lots of objections, on both sides. I think maybe around 30 something, and the split was pretty equal. As for sustained or overruled, I think it was also pretty equal. I noticed there were definitely I believe a lot more objections than yesterday, and so I guess that just shows sort of like the questioning and how the prosecution and the defense are trying to think. Trying to, I guess the word is bait out a certain response.
And so, were there any specific reactions? Or obviously, we've heard, Miles' attorney Sid leading the cross-examination as well. Sabrina has led the cross-examination as well. As far as the collaborations of defense team, what do you think of the energy look like to the public today?
Yeah, today it was definitely, there was quite a few laughs to be had today. So the first was yesterday. So Sid, Miles' lawyer, he was speaking, and he was trying to present evidence. He actually said, the government would like to present to evidence, and then he was like, oh, sorry, I did it again today. And then the second one was when he was cross-examining the third witness. So they were talking about the farm loan and how how the witness lost money in the farm loan. And so the witness mentioned that he believed the contract he signed with the farm, which states that he'll be paid back interest, 8% over 3 years. But then there was an extension of that loan. But he believed that that extension in that contract was invalid because that contract was signed with the UK London farm and David Dye, who was the previous head, who was let go, and the farm was dissolved. So he believed that it was void. And then Sid just said, "So which law school did you go to?" So it was pretty funny. The entire courtroom did laugh, even the jurors laughed as well. And then during Sabrina's cross-examination, there was also a couple laughs to be had.
Right, and so when prosecution team did the questioning, did they bring any laughters to the courtroom?
No, definitely not. Completely unbiased. The prosecution statements, or questioning is always very straightforward. Very calm, very, I guess I would say, collected. There's not really any emotion. Just sort of robotic, and I guess you could tell through the jurors' reactions. Some of them, I want to say, don't look as interested as when the defense lawyers are speaking, especially when Sabrina's speaking. But especially today, it was much more lively, I would say. During breaks, the jurors were like, looking at their notes, paying attention, as well during, when both the sides were speaking, and they seemed much more energetic than yesterday.
Right. And so you mentioned about, there were more supporters who actually went to the courtroom today. So how was the quorum today? Was it filled up? Was it, was it empty? It was, tell us a little bit.
Yeah, the court was pretty full today. The entire public gallery was completely filled.
Wow.
And there were also, a bunch of reporters as well. And so it was definitely more busy than yesterday. So
were they the same reporters that you recognize every day?
Yeah. And I think I saw Inner City Press as well. One of the ones I recognize. But as the trial goes on, obviously, there are probably going to be more people showing up, more reporters as well, trying to cover the case.
Right. And were there suspicious people that you believe that might have connected with Chinese Communist Party in the courtroom?
I noticed one of the reporters from Phoenix TV again. The same one that's been going to the trial for the past ever since jury selection started. So basically the entire trial. Right,
and then for our audience on Alpha TV, right? Phoenix TV is one of the state-run TV stations by the Chinese Communist Party, and we actually did a little bit of investigation of that female reporter, who happened to give out the first report and broadcast for the Chinese Communist Party on Miles' case. And this female reporter was, specifically had lots of photos with diplomatic representatives of the Chinese Communist Party. So it was definitely interesting and investigated, under how Phoenix TV was controlled by CCP and how these, reporters that those television, state-run propaganda media sent them into the courtroom to follow the case. So Kevin, right? Obviously, from 9:30 to almost 3 p.m. every day, it seems to a lengthy process every single day.
Yeah.
And during the process, did Miles take any notes? Obviously, I knew that he has the habits of has pens and notes, and take down questions and communicate with the legal team. How was his reaction when different witnesses came to the court today?
And during the witnesses, the questioning of the witnesses, he was very calm, attentive. He was always looking straight ahead. And occasionally, he would check, he would look towards the jurors. And he was often smiling at the jurors. I noticed that. Maybe he was also looking, at each one, smiling. But he was also, as usual, just speaking to his lawyer sometimes when there were breaks, taking notes as well.
Right. So we can absolutely tell, from your description that Miles is, every single day that his energy that has never changed, and how focused he is when he was at the quorum, right?
Yeah.
And so when obviously it sounds to me maybe half of the cross-examination has completed with the fourth witness. Do you think that our defense team will raise more questions, or tomorrow with the same witness? We would assume that more witnesses will be called upon by government tomorrow, right?
Yeah. So Sabrina was still cross-examining the fourth witness. The judge just ended early because it was about to pass 2:45. So I'm assuming tomorrow in the morning at 9:30, the fourth witness will be questioned again by Sabrina, and then the judge will give the prosecution a chance to re-cross-examine, and then back and forth. The judge will give Sabrina time to cross-examine, and then after that, if both sides have no more questions, then it moves on to the fifth witness.
Right. And so, so far, did the judge give any other spotlights on, pending requests from both sides? Obviously, we've seen some court, documents that has been updated. Nick Blum Davis also filed a declaration and a motion to quash the subpoena that that the case has served to her. And so, did the judge mention about anything today?
No, the judge just ended by asking if there's any special requests. And then I believe the government mentioned that nothing that can't be brought up in the morning tomorrow. And then the defense, I believe, just said, no, nothing.
Right, and so we noticed that yesterday the government did file a motion to include certain exhibits pertaining a post from G News, post from Getter to be included as evidences, and Miles' team filed an objection yesterday afternoon. So in the beginning of today's court proceedings, did the judge mention about her decision of yesterday's opposition from defense?
No, I don't believe so.
Right. So obviously, lots of things have been going on in the courtroom. Lots of things has also been going on with the court documents as well. And so with everyone, who potentially is interested in Miles' case, please, go to our website, nfscofficial.com, and you can click on the court documents so that you will be able to find, court documents. You will be able to find indictment and relevant background information about this case, and that will tell you a little bit more about, where the case is right now. And obviously, right, follow us on Miles' trial from every day, afternoon from 3 to 4. So, Kevin, it sounds to me like, the agenda of the trial now seems to be repetitive because it's the government to bear the burden to prove their allegations. And so since last Friday till today, the day 5 of the trial, it sounds to me like the agenda almost looks the same, right? With each witness who was called upon to the court, always direct questioning first and then cross-examination, and in between there might be objections overruled or sustained, but it sounds to me that the agenda hasn't changed.
Yeah, exactly. And there also sometimes be the judge or the defense or prosecution would request a sidebar, and then there'll be a short break for everyone, except the judges and the lawyers, and they'll discuss whatever they want to discuss, and then they will come back. But other than that, you pretty much hit the nail on the head. It's just witness gets called in, prosecution questioning, defense questioning, then cross-examination, for both parties, and then if no further questions, they move on to the next witness.
Right.
And then we have no idea how many witnesses there will be. It could be anywhere from 20, 30, 40. If there's time for that. The trial is set to. Estimated to end on July 12th, but obviously, things could change, impossible to predict. So we'll see how, as you mentioned, there were subpoenas, we'll see how that goes. Maybe there'll be more witnesses called in, there'll be more motions filed, and so that will definitely affect the length of the trial. But, just based off today, and whatever happened last week, it's very, very routine now.
Right, and so what will be, some specific elements that cause a sidebar conversation in the courtroom?
Yeah.
Was there concerns about how the question was being asked, or were there concerns about the evidences that were presented to the court?
Yeah, I mean, I noticed that, a bunch of the sidebars were called about, facts that I guess I wouldn't say irrelevant, but weren't, mentioned before. Like, for example, I remember yesterday, Sid wanted to talk about ask the witness, if he knew that Sarah Wei of VOG has been convicted in a court in Arizona for fraud, and so the judge actually called a sidebar for that. Then today, if I remember correctly, there's Sabrina asked a question about, or Sid asked a question about the CCP, and the judge also called another sidebar. And so I believe just questions or topics like these that might get more sidebars. But I'm sure, as the trial goes on, both the lawyers will, know more and more about how the judge operates and, which questions they can and cannot ask. Right. And then that'll make it much more smoother.
Right. Well, I think another, important element that Kevin was just mentioned, right? That when Sarah Wei, the specific name that was brought up by, I believe, the third witness, right? Yeah. Because he talked about how he was actually connecting with Sarah Wei about his investments related to, VOG, and that our defense team actually raised that, if he was aware that Sarah Wei was already convicted of fraud in Arizona State. Yeah. So that obviously gives a more solid background of how the third witness's investments was related to people who are not actually on the indictment or even not mentioned in the indictment, and people who are actually already convicted here in the United States. So I think that would absolutely give the jurors a solid legal background of understanding the people's relationship, and as well as the investment nature of the the witness had done and had testified. And so Kevin, what should we look out for, not just tomorrow, but the days for the rest of this week? So obviously, more witnesses will be called upon, and it seems to me like the government and the defense team took at least one day to go through one witness, because obviously it was not the first two witnesses who just have very limited knowledge about one subject matter. All of the witnesses they called upon right now, it takes at least one day. So what can we expect for the rest of the week?
Yeah, I think by tomorrow, it looks like for tomorrow, this fourth witness will be done, being cross-examined, and they'll bring in the fifth witness, and then on Friday probably bring another witness. Hopefully, if things go smoothly. But so I guess you can expect to see two new witnesses possibly. I would say 2-3 max, and then next week they'll probably bring in more witnesses. But yeah, like you said, the pattern seems to me that it takes about a day, a full court day to to question a witness,
Right.
just because of all the information, all the evidence they have to present, and the questioning,
Right.
that they have to get through and show the jury. And I think one thing that should really be paid attention is just keep following us on NFSC Speaks. Follow us for updates. Please pay attention to the trial. We mentioned it before. It really is the trial of the century. You may not think this, the outcome of this case affects you, but believe me, it really does. The CCP is everywhere, has infiltrated America, and just look at what's happening in this case, right? You're gonna see, like Miles's lawyer said, you're gonna see a lot of surprising and eye-opening information. And in the past 5 days, or 2 days 2-3 days since the trial started, a lot of information that we weren't even aware of also came out, right? And such as the bank accounts being on the OFAC sanctions list, and for the jurors, the HNA accident where the CEO was murdered by the CCP,
Right.
and stuff like that, right? So
Right.
it's very important. This trial is super important historically, right?
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
please keep paying attention.
Yeah, absolutely. So, folks, we can take a look at our NFSC Speaks X account because this is where we are going to post timely updates of every day's trial proceedings. And everybody, follow us on Getter on Alpha TV with New Federal State of China. Also, you can find us on NFSC Speaks at our X account, Instagram. Obviously Getter and any other social media platforms that you can think of. We will share timely updates of every day about Miles' trial and also about court documents update as well. So it is a lengthy day and a lengthy week for everybody, but we are excited to hear more from the courtroom, and we're hoping and praying for Miles and every single day for him to return safely home. And obviously we have full confidence in Miles and his defense team to handle the challenge in the courtroom, to present all of the facts to the jurors, and to bring out how Chinese Communist Party actually persecute Miles in history, and how CCP's overseas misinformation campaigns and Foxhound operation campaigns impacted not only Miles as the number one enemy, but also like Kevin mentioned, everybody in this country. And so definitely stay tuned. We will share more updates. And Kevin, thank you so much to join us today.
Thank you, Ella.
Thank you.